right, thank you, Rick. Appreciate that. And good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the Township Council meeting of September 29th, 2021. This is a regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Montclair. It's being broadcast live on Channel 34 and is streaming live on Montclair TV 34 YouTube channel. It is available on demand, can and will be rebroadcast. This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. This meeting was included in the revised annual notice of the meeting schedule as set forth in Resolution R-21-165, adopted by the Council at its conference meeting of August 11, 2021, advertised in the official newspaper on August 19th, 2021, posted in the bulletin boards outside of the municipal building, and has remained continuously posted. In addition to a copy has been posted in the clerk's office and is on file. Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Cummings?
Present.
Deputy Mayor Hurlock?
Present.
Councilor Price Abrams? Absent. Councilor Russo?
Present.
Councilor Schlager?
Here.
Councilor Yacobelis?
Present.
Mayor Spiller?
Present. Thank you. Next, in an effort to minimize exposure to COVID-19 and to maintain social distancing practice, this September 29th meeting of the Township Council and further meetings until the pandemic is over will be only available to the public remotely. Those who wish to participate now during public comment should dial into 408-418-9388. When asked to enter an access code, please enter 179-466-1869. Then press pound. When asked to enter an attendee number, please simply press pound. When asked to state your name, please do so and press pound. The administrator will say when it's the caller's turn to speak, and the caller will then hear 2 beeps. At that time, the caller will then have an opportunity to make his or her comments. Mr. Stafford, Mr. Fan, I turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Caller with the number 973-868. It is your turn to comment. 973-868. Please, for the record, state your name, keep your comments to 3 minutes, and mute your listening device.
Yes, hello?
Yes, sir.
Hi, this is Jason Gleason, Executive Director of Montclair Center Business Improvement District. Wanted to call in tonight with regards to the Montclair Jazz Festival last weekend, and really wanted to say it was a resounding success and couldn't have been without support of the township. So I wanted to call and thank Mayor and Council for your support leading up to the festival. Thank you, Tim, Mr. Stafford as well, for your support and work going through the whole setup and planning phases. I specifically wanted to point out a few people as well for their really exemplary work leading up to the festival that helped make it such a great success. Melissa Chung at the clerk's office, Chief John Herman and Deputy Chief Brian Wild, and fire official Ron Catania at Montclair Fire, and the entire Montclair Fire Department that was on call. Deputy Chief Will Young, Captain John Byer, and Lieutenant Stephanie Ignazzo did some wonderful work in the entire Montclair Police Department that was on staff that day. Have been getting rave reviews. Manny Germano, Superintendent of Parking, was amazing. Chief of EMS, Sean Coffey, and Deputy Chief EMS, Christopher Kendall. Great work by their team as well. Really goes to show it takes a village to get something like this done, and I think we really had a resounding success. We've had so many countless emails coming in from our businesses saying record sales. The chatter on the interwebs there with the residents in town and visitors to this town are nothing but what an incredible event. Estimates pouring in that we've had between 18 and 20,000 people came into our town for this festival on that day, and really just so thankful for you guys' help and help getting it done. And we look forward to a smoother and an even bigger festival next year. So thank you guys all very much for your support, and look forward to moving ahead and an even better festival next year. Thank you.
Before we move on from that, Jason, also a big thank you to you. Also, certainly popping by the Jazz Festival, spending the day. It was a wonderful experience. I'm sure many of my colleagues did also. But it was just we got lucky on the weather too. Let's be clear on that. So thankfully the weather was great. But certainly to Melissa Walker, Jazz Festival, Jazz House Kids kind of underline that. Big kudos and well done, Jason, to you, the bid. I know involved there. Thank you. Want to give a big thank you to Brendan Gill. Can't do this without the county as well, ensuring we got that done and the county road closed. That was a big piece of this. That was one of the earlier part of our conversations. So important work there. And certainly to all of my colleagues on here, I want to give a big thank you. I know that even in pandemic times with very tight budgets, we chipped in both financially in a big way and also, with other support and kind of support where we could, and also, help to make that partnership a really big success. So thank you to everybody involved. I think it was a great success. I know we're all looking forward to always continuing to grow one of the signature events that helped define Montclair and make it so special. So big thank you to everyone involved.
Next would be caller with the number starting 973-267. 973-267. It is your turn to comment. Please, for the record, state your name. Keep your comments to 3 minutes and mute your listening device.
Yeah, hi. My name is Bruce Seidman. I spoke last week. I'm a property owner in town along with my wife. It's a family business, been a family business for about 25 years now. We would just like to see the rent freeze stopped. We think it's gone on long enough. The state stopped their rent freeze. This is for rent increases. Has nothing to do with evictions or anything else. The landlords in town are running into huge costs going forward. Paving, roofs, electricians, plumbers, everything's going up. We have not had a rent increase for close to 2 years, and the state stopped theirs a few months back, and it's time Montclair do the same. We would just ask for the respect that you give to the tenants, which is a lot of respect, and it's due. Please give the same respect to the landlords in town. Most of us are small. Most of us are family businesses. We would appreciate that rent freeze to stop and landlords start at least catching up for the last couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next would be caller with the number starting 201-424. 201-424. It is your turn to comment. Please, for the record, state your name, keep your comments to 3 minutes, and mute your listening device.
This is Ron Simoncini from the Montclair Property Owners Association. I'm not going to be long because obviously it doesn't make any sense to talk to people who don't listen and don't consider two sides of an issue, which I think is represented best in an article that ran in the Montclair News, where your attorney is quoted as saying that he hasn't had any complaints about the rent freeze. We've been on the phone every time it's come up. We're an organization that represents at least 1,725 units. How does anybody say you haven't heard from anybody who said that they're complaining about the rent freeze? Of course we're complaining about the rent freeze. It's ridiculous. The Seidmans and some others have come on every opportunity they've had to express how to deal with rising costs. So to say, it's representative though. Ira's comments aren't in a vacuum. Ira's comments are representative of what the view is, which is if we think that we've got a virtuous position, we just won't hear any other positions. We won't acknowledge that they exist. And I think that, of course, this is retribution for the successful referendum certification that we've had and the appeal that you've made, which will fail. Fine, because there's going to be a mandate. It's just not going to go the way that you think it's going to go. And that's going to resolve all these issues. So go ahead and play like you're playing.
Next would be
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor and Manager.
Mr. Councilman Russo, and Mr. Stafford, your volume is a little low. I'm not sure if anybody else is noticing that. You guys all sensing that? Mr. Stafford, I'm not sure. I'm having trouble hearing you, but Councilman Russo, go ahead.
Yeah, the first caller I've talked to in the past, and I think I just want to get facts straight again. I've looked at all my past emails just today and all the requests that were made by tenants and even lots of homeowners back in April, believe it or not, April of 2020, before this new council was even elected. But when I was there, Mayor Spiller, Councilwoman Schlager, and Councilman Herlock, and I saw all the messages from so many people from throughout the town, please institute a rent freeze. And that was in April. I think we may have done it, shortly after, but it certainly wasn't 2 years. I just want to get that clear. About a year and a half that freeze has been in effect. Now, I know you folks who call in from the property owners group think that's too long, but some tenants think they still need help. And they're not making 25% more. Things are not as great as some people think they are because this pandemic has not gone away. And lots of people are still struggling. But we want to be fair, and I resent Mr. Simoncini's implication immediately that what's the use of talking to us because we don't listen. I'm always listening. I've listened to people from political parties, all political parties, and I've listened to tenants, landlords, and small landlords who I do want to help in some way. I think small landlords need to be helped. But for this kind of dialogue, which is always attack and negative and accusatory, people who don't listen. The reason I'm on this council six times, because I do listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Stafford?
Yes, sir. I'm suffering from a bit of hay fever today, so my volume was a little lower. Is it better now?
It's good.
I'll speak like I'm at home. Caller with the number starting 973219. It is your turn to comment. 973219. Please unmute yourself. Mute your listening device. State your name for the record and keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Can you repeat that number?
It's you, ma'am. 973219. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thanks. This is Wendy Lacey. And thank you for letting me speak. I'm the leader of the People with Disabilities Committee this year. I just want to share a little bit of what we're working on. I'm happy to see a proclamation on the agenda tonight for the Blindness Awareness Month. Our committee will be asking the council for some other proclamations this year to recognize several disability awareness months or days. This is a great way for raising awareness, but also a really great way, a really great springboard for us to connect with other members of the communities living with disabilities. Elma Schneider is now a member of the People with Disabilities Advisory Committee, and I think a lot of people know Elma, and we're going to be helping her put together the second annual Montclair Disability Pride Parade, date to be announced. As a committee, we also want to focus on the topics of accessible housing and transportation. And we know that that's of interest, that's an interest shared with other committees, and we're going to be reaching out to them in an effort to work together. And finally, I just want to remind the council that as an advisory committee, we're really here to help share with you the perspectives and concerns of our citizens living with disabilities. So please keep that in mind as the town makes improvements to our municipality and plans for the future. We're really here to help you make Montclair more inclusive and accessible to everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next would be caller with the number starting 973330. 973330. Please, for the record, state your name, mute your listening device, and keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Frank Wabacki, 398 Upper Mountain Avenue. And I've been following the rent freeze and rent control issue for a while. And I understand, I think, both sides of it as far as the reasons for them. But what I get irked about is the stakes playing in the high ground. I'm in the moral high ground. Quite frankly, it's been a little disappointing. We started out rent control during a pandemic. in a state of emergency in a conference meeting with a last minute agenda item added for rent control. And I mean last minute. And on top of that, there was no ordinance. We had multiple ordinances because we didn't know what it wanted to look like. That was pretty horrible. That was pretty bad. But I put that on the last council. And then we moved forward and into the COVID further, more dead, several more dead, many more displaced, people uprooted. We had a public hearing on it. We passed it, and that was the moral high ground. So, sorry if I don't have a lot of sympathy for the moral high ground that the former council members may be espousing, because quite frankly, there were a lot of people that went through a lot of pain while you were passing that. And we didn't have a good discussion. And quite frankly, I don't think we're having a good discussion now, but I understand why you're doing the rent freeze. I don't know if I agree with it, but I really upset that anybody in this conversation would dare claim the high ground in this matter. It has not been Montclair's best look. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next would be caller with the number starting 973820. 973820. Please, for the record, state your name. Keep your comments to 3 minutes and mute your listening device.
Hi, this is Tony Martin with the Tenants Organization of Montclair. I want to state unequivocally that we do not claim high ground in this debate. What we have done is try to bring the tenants' interests to the public eye. There has never been tenants' protection in Montclair, New Jersey. And we had dozens and dozens of tenants who came forward at council meetings back in the day when they were open to explain the dire straits so many find themselves in with the gentrifying town. In many ways, development has been good for Montclair, but in terms of keeping our population stable, particularly our minority population, our senior population on fixed incomes, and young people who have perhaps start at lower incomes. Rent control was absolutely critical. I'm so glad the past council passed it. It did not come at the last minute. It did not. Yes, it came at the last minute before COVID restrictions were imposed, but it had been argued in full public view in our town for 2 years, as Councilman Rousseau stated. Furthermore, I have to say again that the gentleman who I feel consistently claims high ground and outrage and venomous motivations on the part of everyone else besides himself, Mr. Simon Sini, is an out-of-town public relations man who was hired to come in and wreak havoc on the public discourse in Montclair. I do not think he represents the good-hearted landlords of our town, and I know there are many. We need this rent freeze to stand until we can get a clearer picture on rent control, which is still in the courts, as you know. We're hoping for a ruling. When we have a ruling, whether it goes for or against us on the procedural matter that is before the court, we know that we will get rent control in Montclair because it's time. whether it goes to a referendum or whether the court allows the current referendum to stand. We know it is coming. Everyone who's a landlord
Ms.
should
Martin,
be-
that sound you heard was your time expiring, so please do us the service of concluding your comments.
Certainly. All landlords should be prepared to work with us so that we can keep our community healthy and stable going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next would be caller with the number starting 973747, 973747. It is your turn to comment. Please, for the record, state your name, keep your comments to 3 minutes, and mute your listening device.
Yes, this is William Scott. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I want to agree with Tony Martin's statement that you just made 100%. This situation in Montclair, discussion for rent control has been going on for 35 years, which is totally unnecessary and unfortunate was the acceptance of the level of gentrification and the decrease in the diversity of this township. That's why rent control is absolutely necessary. And I speak as a landlord for 35 years in this town. And what is amazing, the landlords that are getting on the line screaming that this is going to devalue their property, they continue to cry wolf, totally unnecessary. We have had the rent freeze in place for a number of months. I think continuing it to the end of the year will continue to help tenants stabilize their situation after the pandemic. There are still several tenants within the township that are seeking rental assistance through the Department of Community Affairs. There's resources that are available, but it is a time-consuming process. I've been through that process myself. It's taken up to 6 months to get rental assistance, but I work with my tenants. I never filed an eviction for one of my tenants. My understanding, there could be upwards of over 200 plus residents or tenants in Montclair that have evictions filed against them. Any landlord that has an investment property and has had to invest during this period of time from a capital improvement standpoint can write those investments off. So let's give a little leeway to the tenants. Let's help them through this situation. And no tenant that I've ever known received a 25% increase. The false statements that the Property Owner Association, Ron Simonsini, continues to make are unacceptable. So again, I support the rent freeze extension. I'm a landlord for 35 years, and I will do everything I can in my power to work with my tenants to improve their conditions in the Township of Montclair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Next would be caller with the number starting 862202. It is your turn to comment. 862202. Please, for the record, state your name, mute your listening device, and keep your comments to 3 minutes. 862202. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you.
Okay. This is Ruth Kunstadter. I live at 111 Summit Avenue. Some of you know me. I've lived on Summit Avenue for 30 years. I'm calling to get your help in preventing a future tragedy because we are having a real problem at the corner of Summit and Grove with the crossing. It's always been bad. As I'm sure you know, it's a really busy area. Summit goes right into where the entrance to Brookdale Park is, so it's always been bad. I myself have nearly been hit trying to cross the street, especially with people who zoom around somebody who's stopped for you. But it's gotten worse in the last 2 weeks because for the first time in 30 years, the school district has decided to put the bus stop for the kids on Summit Avenue on the other side of the street. So our kids have to cross Grove Street with their parents or caregivers to get to the bus during rush hour. And in the last week, 3 of my neighbors have nearly been mowed down with their children. So there are two things that need to happen. I know it's a county road, but we need a flashing light at that corner. And we also need for the Montclair Public Schools to change that bus stop. In my 30 years on this street, the kids have never had to cross Grove Street to take a bus.
Is that all you have, ma'am?
That's all I have to say.
Thanks very much.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, if I could jump in real quick.
Please, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Yes, and I appreciate your concern and you calling in this evening. I've received several calls, emails, and text messages about that very corner. The other day, I met with Lieutenant Ignazo, who heads the Montclair Traffic Bureau, as well as the engineering department, about the crosswalk signs and about also looking at, and I've spoken with representatives at the schools as well, in my capacity on the board school estimate, to effectuate some changes there. And please know that we're working diligently and quickly on that very issue. I've spoken with several of the neighbors as well. So duly noted. I appreciate your call, and we are looking into it as quickly as possible. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You bet, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And of course, any assistance, let me know, of course, from the office, that we can apply any pressure, because we do know it's a county road and there's some other factors involved. So anything you need, I know you're diligently working on it, but, of course, let us know. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Next would be caller with the number starting 973-619. 973-619, please. It is your turn to comment. State your name for the record. Keep your comments to 3 minutes and mute your listening device.
Yes, good evening. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council and the public. This is Ahava. I'm calling as president of the Tenants Organization of Montclair. Happy to be here tonight and that we are still able to continue on with virtual, although we're no longer in person. I wanted to talk about the rent freeze ordinance a little bit. Just a reminder to everyone, especially those who are listening and tuning in for the first time, that the rent freeze ordinance speaks to the unconscionable as well as the conscionable now due to the public health crisis that is, I will say, quote unquote, waning. May 1, 2020 is not 2 years ago. It was last year, because today is September 29th of 2021, and May 1 of 2020 is when the rent freeze ordinance was first enacted, and we do know that that was retro. Not every call has reflected calls in from property owners or landlords. Basically, that was last week's call with regard to the rent freeze ordinance, and last week was September 21 of 2021. It was 8 days ago. Just for additional clarification, rent control, as mentioned previously from other callers as a part of our group, the Tenants Organization Montclair Advocacy Group, rent control was not last minute, because this journey outside of the pandemic has been going on for well over 30 years. And I'd like to see a lot more compassion around it and within it. There are people who have passed on who are working on this movement. That's what brought us here. There are people that are not from this town who are inappropriately in the conversation. And as stated by our VP, Tony Martin, we would like to see our community keep our community healthy and stable going forward. We will hopefully have no more conversations with new residents who cannot live here after 1 year, not knowing that when they moved in, that $1,450 would become $1,750 or $2,000, unconscionable. Rent control would handle that by the cap that's 4.25% and the other percentage for seniors. The residents we've spoken to who've moved here, this ranges from Zs to baby boomers and beyond. I'd like to just make an announcement that the next meetings for intro and info for TOOM, Tenants Organization of Montclair, will be on October 17th. We have a 4 p.m. in person at Trend Coffee and Tea House, a popular meeting place for us, public. And then we have a 5:30 p.m. and 7 p.m. virtual that is password protected and by confirmation of attendance for tenants. and our property owners and landlords who are supportive of the rent control ordinance and as well as the rent freeze ordinance. You can find us and join us at the mutual aid event on October 17th from approximately 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Ms.
We would
Felicidad,
love
that sound you heard was your time expiring, so please do us the service of summing up your comments.
We would love to see you stay. Have a good night.
Thank you very kindly. Next would be caller with the number starting 973-424. 973-424. It is your turn to comment, please. For the record, state your name. Keep your comments to 3 minutes and mute your listening device. Nine seven three 424.
Yes, you can hear me.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Can you still hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm on a train.
That's okay.
My name is Deirdre Malloy. I'm with the Montclair Housing Commission and the NAACP Housing Committee and Chair of the Landlord Tenant Housing Advisory Committee. My remarks tonight are regarding the rent freeze moratorium extension. First, I'd like to say that tenants below the 80% AMI protections expire January 1, 2022. That means you cannot be evicted. While the rent freeze is not unreasonable under certain situations and not popular with certain landlords due to the economic impact, because of the fact that many small landlords are still abusing tenants' rights, is what I think this extension consideration is mostly about. I'm not sure what data is being confirmed that landlords are compliant. To the contrary, still many landlords are not being compliant unless they're being forced to be compliant. I still receive direct phone calls from church leaders, local residents who know me, and others who refer tenants to me because landlords are still raising rents. An example is a landlord attempted to raise rents by 100%. I have confirmation of that. Another tried to force a tenant out by not renewing the lease, and they are protected by the ERAP certification process. And there are more stories, pardon me, I'm sorry, there are more stories not being compliant. So I'm not really sure where that data is that landlords are being compliant. I understand that there are certain landlords that are being impacted unfairly, and I would recommend they reach out to their small counterparts to let them know. And therefore, I also want to know how many of these landlords under 3 units are in compliance with the landlord registration. Where's the data for that? Several have not even registered as required by law. This is an unprecedented situation for all of us. We need to work together to resolve until and unless rent control is in place. Thank you so very much, and I apologize for the background noise.
Thank you. Mayor, there are no other callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you, sir. With that, then we'll close public comments. Thank you. We appreciate the feedback from everybody. And as Councilman Russo noted, we listen carefully to all the comments and remarks, and of course, certainly helps guide our decision making. Of course, moving to next, we have some proclamations that I would like to have some of my colleagues read, if you don't mind. First is a proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and Councilwoman Schlager, would you mind reading?
Yes, I would be honored to do that, Mayor. Thank you. This proclamation is to bring awareness to domestic violence. Whereas ending violence in the home is a national imperative that requires vigilance and dedication from every sector of our society, we must stand alongside advocates, victim service providers, law enforcement, and our criminal justice system as they hold offenders accountable and provide care and support to survivors. And whereas although we have seen changes in laws and improved support services for survivors, we must do more to provide protection and justice for survivors and to prevent violence from occurring. And whereas October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and each year Essex County Family Justice Center uses the opportunity to reach out to neighbors in the community. The ECFJC has been providing coordinated services to domestic violence victims throughout the county for 11 years and has proudly assisted over 9,700 survivors and find safety and support to build their lives with dignity and hope. And whereas the Township of Montclair wishes to join ECFJC's 2021 No More Violence campaign, which honors victims and survivors and mobilizes advocates to take a stand against abuse. And whereas during National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we stand with domestic abuse survivors, celebrate our nation's progress in combating these despicable crimes, and resolve to carry on until domestic violence is no more. Now, therefore, the Council of the Township of Montclair does hereby declare October 2021 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and urges the community to post a picture of a candle with the hashtag everyone I know, everyone I know, no more, and stop the cycle. We join communities across the United States in supporting victims of domestic violence, sharing the worthy goals of this month-long observance and supporting the work of public and private entities that strive to provide the best coordinated response to domestic violence. And I so move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 And thank you, Councilwoman. Certainly I know one of the reasons why we do a lot of these proclamations is to draw attention, make sure that issues are at the forefront of people's minds and part of the conversation. And certainly that's a big piece in making sure that we try and address, obviously domestic violence reform. Next, excuse me, we have a proclamation for Italian Heritage Month. And can I ask Councilman Iacobellis, would you please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I do so on behalf of our Italian caucus here in the council, Deputy Mayor Herlock, Councilor Russo, Councilor Slager, and myself. Got a majority here for cannolis. Whereas over 5.4 million Italians immigrated to the United States between 1820 and 1992. Today, there are over 26 million Americans of Italian descent in the United States, of which 2 million reside in New Jersey. Italian Americans have made significant contributions to our social, cultural, and economic life, and the Italian American community enjoys a rich history rooted in ancient civilization that has had a profound influence on every aspect of our society. Our nation was even named after an Italian, the explorer and geographer Amerigo Vespucci. And whereas bound by enduring values of faith and family, Italian Americans have flourished in all areas of our public and economic life while preserving their proud Italian traditions. Upon arrival to the United States, the Italian American community faced racial, social, and religious discrimination. Yet Italian Americans have persevered with hope and hard work to reach for the American dream and help build our great country. And whereas the legacy of these intrepid immigrants is found today in the millions of American men, women, and children of Italian descent who strengthen and enrich our country. Italian Americans operate thriving businesses, teach our children, serve at all levels of government, including Speaker of the House and the U.S. Supreme Court, the late Scalia, unfortunately, and succeeded in countless occupations. Drawing on the courage and principles of their ancestors, they led in every facet of American life, dedicating their knowledge and skills to the growth of our country. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of the Township of Montclair do hereby recognize the rich heritage of Italian Americans' descent, celebrate their immeasurable contributions to our nation, and proclaim October 2021 as Italian American Heritage Month. We call upon all Americans to learn more about the history of Italian Americans and to observe this month with appropriate programs and activities. And I so move.
Second.
Aye. Thank you. And I certainly want to note, as we do celebrate, certainly many Italian Americans for the great work and the contributions, we would be remiss if we didn't highlight the fact that right here, Essex County is celebrating our own deputy mayor. Congratulations, Deputy Mayor Herlock, who's being recognized and honored by the county. I believe it's Tuesday correct, Mr. Deputy Mayor? I know it's virtual, but great honor certainly for you, sir, and congratulations in that recognition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. That means a great deal to me. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So,
Mayor, I just want to congratulate Councilman Hurlock because I had that same honor about 4 years ago. Brendan Gill nominated me to be the Italian of the Month or whatever. And I made a big speech about my family growing up in Newark, the Italian community, my father, and also Councilman Iacobellis. Even though people hear the name, they think it's Greek. He's Italian. Councilwoman Schlager has the Italian heritage in her background. Everybody wants to be a little Italian once in a while, especially when it comes to the food, the restaurants, the great restaurants, the Italian restaurants in Montclair and elsewhere. But as I always say, and I said last month when I read Hispanic Heritage Month, we have an overlapping month of Hispanic heritage in part of September into October, and then all of October with Italian Americans. But it really, we're all Americans, and we're all trying to do the right thing as a diverse community. And Montclair has that great diversity, starting with the small area near Pine Street where the Italian Americans used to live. And they grew up in the same neighborhood with a lot of African Americans that go back, way back in Montclair. And that's the kind of thing Montclair can be a model for, good relationships between all these ethnic and racial groups. Thanks, Mayor.
thank you, sir. Next, we have a proclamation for National Substance Abuse Prevention Month. I was going to ask Councilwoman Price Abrams to do this. I'm not sure if she's having technical difficulties, though, still. Councilwoman, if not,
Mayor, thank you. I do hear the request, and I have to unfortunately decline, is that I'm having technical challenges, so I cannot read it at this time, and I apologize for that. I cede the spot. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm going to ask Councilman Cummings, would you mind doing the honors of reading that proclamation?
Sure, I will step in for Lori, and as the brother of someone who had a substance abuse problem but overcame it, this is something that many families deal with, and I'm not exempt. So I appreciate this Township Montclair Proclamation, National Substance Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas, as our nation continues its unprecedented fight against the coronavirus pandemic, the mayor and the council of the Township of Montclair are acutely aware of how isolation affects mental health and can encourage the misuse of illegal and illegal substances. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services reports that approximately 23 million people in the United States aged 12 or older annually use illicit drugs. And whereas millions of Americans, including those from Montclair, suffer from substance use disorders, which include underage drinking, alcohol dependency, non-medical use of prescription drugs, abuse of over-the-counter medications, and illicit drug use. And whereas prevention strategies targeting the root of these dependency problems are essential to curb drug use and help people lead healthier lives, and early intervention can prevent substance abuse and reduce the negative consequences of addiction before they occur. And whereas the mayor and the council are advancing initiatives to address substance abuse through collaborative, community-based efforts, we are strengthening support systems that deter members of our community from drug use and improve overall mental health and wellness. And whereas the Municipal Alliance Committee of Montclair and the Municipal Alliances for the Prevention of Alcoholism and Drug Abuse across New Jersey facilitate community-based partnerships that involve youth, parents, educators, concerned citizens, and government officials who work to strengthen resources that can help keep our residents away from drug consumption. And whereas in stigma-free Montclair, we foster an environment where people are free from judgment and are offered the help they need to recover from their dependencies without feelings of shame, embarrassment, distress, or hopelessness. And they are encouraged to seek or accept help so that they can lead productive lives. Now, therefore, the mayor and council of the Township of Montclair hereby proclaim October 2021 as Substance Abuse Prevention Month in Montclair, and we acknowledge the grief felt by families and friends of our community who have loved ones struggling with substance abuse. We thank the many volunteers of the Montclair Municipal Alliance Network for their dedication and perseverance, and recognize them for their invaluable contributions to the Montclair community. And I so move.
It's moved and second, and all in favor, aye.
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 Thank you, Councilman, for reading that. I think so many people are touched by someone who has been in a position of substance abuse, and thankfully, as you noted, have been successful in fighting back. That's what this is all about. Again, raising awareness and knowing that there's support out there. So thank you for that. Next, another proclamation, again, very important to kind of raise awareness and as it relates also to social and emotional well-being and it carries over to that mental health importance of caring for one another. Mr. Deputy Mayor, can I ask you to read the proclamation on Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, if you would?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a special meeting for me and my family. Whereas pregnancy and infant loss is such a common occurrence, but one that is usually not discussed, and whereas many Montclair parents and families have suffered a miscarriage, stillbirth, or the death of an infant during delivery or shortly after birth, and whereas Montclair wishes to acknowledge the profound grief experienced by families who suffer the death of a baby or infant, and whereas increased awareness of the causes and impacts surrounding pregnancy and infant loss may lead to greater understanding, support, and resources in Montclair. And whereas a day of remembrance honors the lives of children taken far too soon and supports grieving parents, grandparents, siblings, and other family members whose life are forever altered by the heartbreak of losing a child. And whereas promoting awareness of the challenges faced by those parents and families is a positive means of establishing support and understanding. And whereas in 1988, President Reagan proclaimed October as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. And whereas recognizing Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month would enable the people of Montclair to consider how, as individuals and communities, they can meet the needs of bereaved mothers, fathers, and family members, and work to prevent the causes of these deaths. And whereas the 15th day of October is recognized in parts of the United States and in many other jurisdictions around the world as a day of remembrance and awareness of pregnancy and infant loss. And now, therefore, the mayor and council of the Township of Montclair do hereby proclaim the 15th day of October to be Pregnancy and Infant Loss Remembrance Day, and urge our citizens and all agencies and organizations to unite on that day in remembrance of all babies gone too soon, in support of all families grieving the death of their baby at any time during a pregnancy or infancy, and in dedication to a healthy pregnancy and the prevention of these tragedies. And Mr. Mayor, I so move.
Sir, moved and seconded, and all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Next, we have a proclamation for Blindness Awareness Month, and can I ask Councilman Russo, would you please?
Thank you, Mayor. And the reason I want to read this, I usually do it every year because I've had such sight issues all my life. My mother had tremendous glaucoma, and I developed that when I was younger, and we've had all kinds of issues with our eyes. My wife and I've been to so many doctors about these things. They're hereditary usually, but cataracts come when you get older, you get them removed. You can see maybe in the distance. I got great vision for movies, driving, and everything in the distance, but you can't read up close now. But there's ways of dealing with it, and because it's been something I've dealt with all my life, I appreciate being able to read Blindness Awareness Month. Our Disabilities Committee is focusing on all of these different issues, disabilities that people have. So thank you, Wendy, for calling in before. We're working very hard to bring attention to all of the many disabilities that some people struggle with, and those who are blind and losing sight or having sight problems especially. Whereas blindness and profound vision loss affect more than 160,000 people in New Jersey, and the number is expected to grow as the population ages. Whereas National Eye Institute projects the number of people with serious visual impairment and blindness in the U.S. will double to more than 8 million by 2050. Whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported that about 61 million adults in the U.S. are at risk for serious vision loss. Whereas it's important to make residents of Montclair aware of the prevalence of vision impairment and the critical importance of vision rehabilitation services, counseling, training that can help people with vision loss. Whereas the Vision Loss Alliance has locations in Morris, Essex, and Bergen counties, and is the only comprehensive residential vision rehabilitation program for adults in New Jersey. And whereas Vision Loss Alliance of New Jersey, one of the state's longest-serving nonprofits for adults with vision loss, is working to expand services related to education, independence, and overall well-being. Now, therefore, the proclamation is passed by the Mayor and Council of the Township of Montclair, proclaiming October 2021 as Blindness Awareness Month in Montclair. And we thank Vision Loss Alliance for bringing this to our attention after 78 years of work to increase public awareness about eye disease and eye care. Help us understand the challenges our vision impaired loved ones, friends, neighbors, and coworkers deal with daily. So moved.
Seconded, and all in favor?
Aye.
And thank you, Councilman, and to all my colleagues for, again, I think using a lot of the proclamations here to both highlight some great achievement, but also highlight very important issues that demand attention constantly. So thank you to all my colleagues for helping us read those and pass those proclamations. Next, moving on to new business, we have a new business, a new ordinance that we have here. This is an Ordinance O-21-26. It's ordinance of the Township of Montclair, County of Essex, State of New Jersey, approving the transfer of the financial agreement from CLPF Montclair Urban Renewal LLC to 11 Pine Urban Renewal LLC, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions, concerns, comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Counselor Cummings,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hurlock,
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams,
Yes.
Counselor Russo,
Yes.
Counselor Schlager,
Yes.
Counselor Yacovelis,
Yes.
Mayor Spiller.
Yes. Next, we have items 1 through 5 on the consent agenda. Without objection, is there anyone who likes to hold any of them out?
Mayor,
Councilman Yacovelis, which number?
I'd just like to comment on number 2. We don't have to pull it out necessarily, but I would just like to comment on that before we vote.
Okay. Would anyone like to pull any out? Just go there first. Okay, seeing none, I'll go back to Councilman Yacovelis to comment on R-21-189.
Thanks, Mayor. So this one, I've listened to all the feedback from both sides of the argument, and I've really been honestly struggling with this one a little bit. I just think it's definitely been tough for all parties involved, but we have to look at the numbers, and yes, inflation's 5.3% right now, which is astronomical and scary and dangerous. We've got 65 container ships off the West Coast that can't even dock at the port because the demand on materials and demand on products and goods coming into the country is astronomical, and costs are going up on all things across the board because of it. So that does affect owners, but the unemployment rate is still pretty high and not back at all to its pre-pandemic level. So I just think we have to balance these things. And I've spoken to a few property owners who have frankly said to me, I'm okay with extending the rent freeze a couple more months. So I know even those groups are split. So I am going to vote one more time to extend this rent freeze. But I do think, this is probably the last time for me if the trend keeps heading in this direction, just in terms of unemployment going down. We've got help wanted signs everywhere, with schools being open full time, and what looks like a healthy trajectory in terms of overall economic recovery. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, we'll have a slight deletion of one word in the resolution that came up, and I think it should be done. If the council doesn't have a problem, on the last whereas, take out the word health before the word emergency. Please delete that.
Okay. Without objection. Seeing no objection, it's deleted. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Certainly, thank you, Councilman, for sharing those remarks. I think everybody, we all know this is always a balance, and I know that all my colleagues, we all look at this carefully and closely. I think a lot of those indicators are things that we look at, and certainly also looking at what the condition is in terms of the virus and the pandemic, at this moment, and then going into winter, right, which is when this would extend it through. When we look at the end of the year, when we're hard to winter, have people getting vaccinated? Is this moving in the right direction in that regard, or are things shutting down further and causing more challenges? I think that's a factor everyone will be looking at as well. There is a moment, of course, where this does not continue into perpetuity. It does end at some point, and I think that is on us to always, as the councilman noted, balance all those different pieces to kind of see where that end point is. As you've all heard, I think there's no objection to removing this from the consent agenda, so we're not at that point at this time. But I think we're all looking to see when that all those different pieces, others, as I noted, the pandemic itself, intersect to make a determination as to when that is the appropriate time. So I know that all my colleagues will continue to do their homework and due diligence to come to those conclusions individually, and then, of course, for us to take appropriate action. So with that, I move our consent agenda, and why don't we do a roll call on it? We've got a couple things. So, Madam Clerk.
Second.
Thank you,
sir.
Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Counselor Cummings?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hurlock?
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams?
Yes.
Counselor Russo?
Yes.
Counselor Schlager?
Yes.
Counselor Yacobelis?
Yes.
Mayor Spiller?
Yes, thank you. And with that, concluding our agenda items, we'll go, I forget which order I did it last time, so why don't we go with
Mayor, we have item number 6.
Oh, did I miss it? I'm sorry. Item number 6. Let's see here on my page here.
That was added.
I can read it, Mayor, if you'd like me to.
Go ahead, just because I have the old one.
You bet. It's resolution R-21-193, annual approval of the corrective action plan for 2020 audit recommendation. Would you like me to speak on it for a minute, sir?
Well, just noted briefly, and I think for the public too, that this is, if I'm correct, Mr. Stafford, too, when we do our audit and we get our recommendations, and of course we want to adopt any changes, and thankfully, again, I think people will be pleased we had, I think, really one recommendation here that we're going to try and address that. But I believe, Mr. Stafford, we're up against some timepieces on this, hence the late edition. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct. The Chief Financial Officer presented this to me a short time ago, 2 weeks ago, and I inadvertently did not have it placed on the agenda, and for that I beg your indulgence. You are correct. Statutorily, there is a 60-day window within which a governing body must approve the corrective action plan. And you are also correct when you say that due to her hard work and that of her team and that of the department heads of the township, as well as the governing body, there is but one recommendation. And the corrective action plan is to implement how to address that one recommendation, which will certainly be done in short order.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. So I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. It's not a specific financial. Should we do a roll call though on this one, Mr. Karasik? Or yep. All right. So let's do a roll call, Madam Clerk.
Counselor Cummings?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hurlock?
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams?
Yes.
Counselor Russo?
Yes.
Counselor Schlager?
Yes.
Counselor Yacobelis?
Yes.
Mayor Spiller?
Yes. Thank you. And with that, now go around. Mr. Stafford, anything additionally?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one thing for me. Tomorrow, the township has the good favor of a FEMA disaster survivor assistance team appearing at our fire department headquarters. That is, of course, at 1 Pine Street tomorrow, as well as on Saturday, both days from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. So FEMA team members, disaster survivor assistance team members, will provide in-person case-specific information and referrals. No appointments are necessary. Folks can appear at our fire department headquarters. The FEMA representatives will have a tent set up in front of our headquarters, and they will be able to address in-person folks with respect to information case-specific to their interests, as well as refer them as necessary. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bermudez-Nieves, anything?
Thank you, Mayor. No report tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Stafford, Mr. Scantlebury, sorry.
No report, Mayor.
Mr. Karasik?
Nothing, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, given the lateness of the hour, I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Fair. Councilwoman Schlager?
All I have to say is go Yankees.
Oh,
Look at that. Yeah, head rolls.
could have saved that one, Council.
Councilwoman Price Avery.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And I apologize that I was not on camera this evening and kind of working out my glitch. But I did want to just take this one moment. Last night was a Jewish celebration called Simchat Torah. 3 synagogues, including B'nai Keshet, which is in Montclair, and 2 other area synagogues, including my own in Bloomfield, gathered lots of folks and had a very joyful time. And I wanted to extend appreciation to members of the township, members of the bid, and others who helped, the local law enforcement, of course, who covered that for the organizations. And it just made for a very nice opportunity to, again, rejoice in something meaningful to the Jewish community, in a public way. So no, it comes with some impact as all of these things do, but that is part of the beauty and the fabric of our community, that we find these ways and we try and help embrace them all. So I just wanted to express my appreciation and to those who organized it. And otherwise, I'll say thank you and look forward to talking with everyone next time.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Cummings?
Yes, Mayor, thanks for this opportunity. I want to give a big shout out to the Barber twins, Mickey and Melissa. They're having their bike ride Sunday at Glenfield Park. It's a great event, the big bike ride starting at 11 a.m. Last year, they did it for the first time, and it was a great turnout. So if you like the bike ride, suggest you really get out there. I think you'll really enjoy it. I also want to pass on condolences to former council member Charles Smith. His mother, Frida Smith, passed away recently at 94. Ms. Smith was a longtime Montclair resident who was an educator by profession, but a wonderful woman. She's one of those, she's one of those pillars of the community who really had a place where in the part that Montclair being the town that it has become. And she was family to me, as Charles is married to my first cousin, Quinta. But this is a tremendous loss, but she had a long, great life, and I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that. And, considering we had the proclamation on the National Domestic Violence Month, I want to also give a shout out to Cynthia Walker and the work she's done with Sophia. They had their 11th annual walk at Canterbury Park back on, I think it was September 18th. Ms. Walker does a great job of awareness and providing hope for those individuals who, have gone through this, victims and those survivors, and they provide them with assistance and really encourage them to be positive, self-sufficient, and successful. And although I was not able to attend the Jazz Festival, I heard many great things. It seems like it was a resounding success. I know the folks with the bid have just been talking about how positive it was. But I also want to say that, I did attend the weekday events that led up to it. And that activation in that area is something that was really positive. And I look forward to having conversations about how we can continue that next year, because it was really nice to be able to get out on a weeknight and have a good time. So that's my comments for tonight, and I look forward to continuing to do the great things that we're trying to do in this council.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Yacobelis?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just wanted to highlight the voter registration deadline of October 12th, an important election. We're one of only 2 states, of course, as you know, and all our colleagues know, that have a gubernatorial election this year. All of our state reps are up. We have a ballot initiative here in Montclair in terms of elected versus appointed boards. So lots of important things on the ballot in November. And so there are a lot of new people in Montclair. So if you've moved to Montclair recently, please make sure to change your address in terms of your voter registration before the 12th. 2 topics I've been getting a lot of emails on, a lot of just correspondence on in general. I just want to address parking meters just from my perspective. And obviously, I know, Mayor, I and Councilor Schlager have been talking about this in the Economic Development Committee meetings, and me and Deputy Mayor Herlock have discussed it also in the context of the Small Business Committee meetings that we've had. So, to the public at large, we are aware 11% of our meters. I think, Mr. Scantlebury, that was the number that we talked about in our call. Approximately 11% of the meters are not working right now. And that really is, again, to my understanding from what I've been told by the staff here, that has more to do with the supply chain and the availability of replacement parts really than anything else. That's really the issue. Screens that are broken are on back order, and other parts are on back order as well. So I just want to, I've probably got at least 12 different, outreaches from constituents just in the last 48 hours on this. Just want to highlight that we're aware and that we are talking about it in these different committees. And I think there are some ideas circulating. We've certainly talked about the need for more labeling and stickering in terms of the Park mobile app, more training and communications around how to download, how to use that app. We've had correspondence with the Aging in Montclair group, with the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee on their thoughts around, how seniors could potentially adopt use of that app. What are the barriers to success and use for that? What are other challenges related to that? And then philosophically, which obviously has a huge financial impact for the town, should we be ticketing for people who are parking at a spot that has a broken meter if they can't or don't have access to or can't download or use the app? So I just want to kind of represent, I know a lot of sidebar conversations happening amongst our committees on the council. So I just want the public to know that we are working on that. And of course, Mayor, opine in your comments as well. And the other is on stormwater management. Just since Ida, I've been all over town, as many of you have, in terms of just visiting with homeowners and businesses and looking at the waterways. And, there's our ordinances and what we can do from a stormwater management perspective. And I think I've been reading through them and jotting down some notes. And I think that there is definitely some opportunity for us to look at improving our own ordinances. But at the end of the day, we are talking about moving water from higher points of elevation to rivers and to the ocean that come through our county and our town. And these are things that are of a magnitude that a town and municipality just simply cannot address, right? If you look at waterways in Africa and other places that aren't developed, rivers change, water flow changes over time, right? You can look this up in the Amazon, you can look it up in the Serengeti. You can see how rivers have changed their shape and size over time. It's not natural for rivers to keep their traditional shape and traditional path. So when you build towns around waterways and these things happen and precipitation patterns change over time, you end up with flooding challenges. It's not unique to Montclair. It takes place everywhere. And the one thing I will note too is, certain streets have gotten a lot of attention, and we've talked about a lot of streets. I have at least 8 different conversations going with different streets that flooded in the storm where everyone thinks their problem is unique. And it's not. These are macro issues that have to do with climate change, that have to do with increased precipitation, and have to do with development decisions that have been made over generations. So I just wanted to address those things because they keep coming up. And I think, just overall, the more we kind of relay facts and convey, that we are addressing some of these, or at least having conversations about how we'll address some of these things, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Russo?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I just want to remind everybody, lots of damage occurred during the storm, and one group that I'm becoming more involved with is the MHS crew, the rowing club, and they're having a fundraiser this October 1st, 7 to 11 p.m., and it's a barbecue. So all the proceeds go to help the crew team to rebuild because they lost a lot of equipment and need to get some funds raised. So anyone can help with that, try to attend and pursue contributions to the Montclair High School crew team. My last comment would be, October comes this month. It'll be my birthday. I'll be 74. And I look back on a perspective here of quite a few years. What I was saying earlier to the gentleman who called in and says we don't listen, I know that we all listen. Sometimes we may not agree, we may not respond the way somebody wants, but we're all trying to listen. Every single message I get on the iPad here is answered within a day at the most, and I try to give everybody some kind of response and acknowledgement that I at least got it, and that I'll talk to my colleagues about it. But no one of us can do anything alone. We do it as a team, we do it as a majority of 4. We do it as the whole 7 council members. So I want people to understand we do listen, we try our best. We may disagree, but it's a positive democracy at work government that is also a council manager government where the manager and the professional team of employees, full-time employees, have to implement or follow up on things. So when residents call and want help, yeah, we'll listen, we'll try to help, we'll send a message to the manager, and that's the way it works. We don't direct town staff to do anything. We just don't do it. This system is a manager run system. Now, I just want to say one other thing that was on my mind, because September 11th was a really traumatic, experience for so many people. I want to just thank Diana Stewart again for coming and giving her family's story again, and that the people who did the high school cleanup for the Ron Rubin, the beam from the World Trade Center, did such a great job. But I want to shout out again to the new president of Montclair State, Jonathan Koppel, for coming to both the high school and to our Watchung Plaza small monument and our nice gathering. And I think that Montclair State is going to keep working with the town, hopefully on a lot of projects, a lot of activities, and a lot of programs to help Montclair. So I welcome again President Koppel, and I thank him for coming. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Excuse me. I'll just close it out, echoing a lot of my council colleagues' sentiments for sure. Specific to the one talking about parking meters. We know some of the challenges that exist around these, and there are conversations about what that future looks like. Certainly, there are always explorations. The biggest challenge that we have with the meters are people, jamming them intentionally with items that block the coin slots, or bagging them to remove the solar power, et cetera. There is eventually, obviously the movement, we saw that probably jumpstarted in a big way with COVID and people trying to be contactless, moving away from coin acceptance at parking meters. That's going to be a conversation absolutely fully, but also the conversation about what is, and so far a couple of vendors are not available to do this, but leasing meters, just allowing, it wouldn't help now, as the councilman noted, this is more of a supply issue in terms of fixing, some of the broken meters, but in the future, just make sure staying on the latest technology. Are there options there to enter into contracts that are cost effective? We're continue to assess that in all the different subcommittees and seeing what might be able to be brought forward. So that work is ongoing. So with that though, and certainly it was noted by me with the comment by the deputy mayor, given the hour, and I'm very mindful as well, sir. So with that, I will not prolong this meeting, and I will say to everyone, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Second.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great
Good night, folks.
Night.
Be
Thank
well.
you.
Thank you.